Still standing, we'll take the third stanza of our national anthem as our opening prayer. At the count of 2. 1, 2. O God of all creations, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed, and so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. Amen. You may please be seated. The Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, the host of the Ministerial Press Briefing Series, Mohammed Idris, Fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, I must greet you this morning. Our guest this morning, the Honorable Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu, FCA, FCIB, OFR. I must greet you specially this morning. The Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Ononuga. I must greet you this morning, sir. The Acting Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, the person of Mr. Ibidapo Okuno, MNIPR, NPOM. The Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Power, Mahmouda Mama. Senior Special Assistants to the President here this morning need to recognize the presence of Mr. Tope Ajayi. Federal Directors of both ministries here present this morning. Director Generals, Chief Executive Officers, Managing Directors, Executive Secretaries of agencies, parastatals, and agencies under both ministries here present this morning. I must greet you specially. Editors, Bureau Chiefs, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. With the kind permission of the host of the Ministerial Press Briefing Series, I would like to briefly introduce the Chief Executive Officers of the visiting ministry as well as the host ministry here present. Thank you, sir. Permit me at this time to recognize the presence of the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Electricity Management Services Agency, Engineer Aliyu Tuko. Please a round of applause for him. Also recognizing the presence of the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of TCN, Engineer S.A. Abdulaziz. Recognizing the presence of the Director General, NAPTIN, Ahmed Bolaji Nagode. Recognizing the representative of the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of NDPHC, Professor Stephen Ogagi. Recognizing the presence of the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of the FGN Power Company, Kenny Anuwe. Also recognizing the Acting Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading, Johnson Akinawo. Recognizing the presence of the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of NEL MCO, NEMCO, Moji Olua Dekalu Thomas. Please a round of applause for her. Also recognizing the presence of the Managing Director, Chief Executive of NISO, Engineer Abdul Bello Mohammed. And finally, recognizing the presence of the executive leading the rural electrification, the person of Engineer Umar A. Umar. Permit me to recognize also the presence of the Director General of the largest television network in Africa. Please put your hands together for Malam Abdulhamid Dembos. Also the presence of the Director General, Voice of Nigeria, Malam Jibril Baba Ndache. Honorable Minister, for the want of time, permits me to skip through the other long list of dignitaries here present. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor to welcome you to the 6th Ministerial Press Briefing Series. Permit me to create a bit of history on this program. You may wish to recall that the first Ministerial Press Briefing was hosted by the Honorable Minister of Information. The second edition had in attendance the Ministers of Regional Development as well as Livestock Development. In this series, we have had in the third edition the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. In this series, the fourth edition, we featured the Minister of Education alongside the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development. And the last we had in the fifth edition, we had the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Interior. It is with great pleasure that we have in our midst this morning the man steering the affairs of power and electricity in Nigeria, Chief Adebayo Adelabu. With that said, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I will yield the floor and invite the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation to please lift the curtain on today's proceeding. So please put your hands together for Mohammed Idris, Fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister of Power, my brother, my friend, the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Information and National Orientation, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Power, Chief Executives of Parastatals under the Ministry of Power and the Ministry of Information and National Orientation. Let me welcome you once again to this Ministerial Press Briefing. As you have heard, this is the 6th in the series, and we have featured a number of ministers, and we will continue to do that. The goal is that by the midterm of this administration, all ministers will have presented themselves to the Nigerian media, or to the Nigerian public rather, through the Nigerian media, and you will have the opportunity to interrogate them and ask questions, seek for clarifications as we deem fit. Let me welcome you to this 6th edition of this press briefing. Like I said, featuring the Honorable Minister of Power, Chief Adedayo Adelabu. Since we kicked off in in February 2025 this year, we have hosted ministers representing a total of 7 ministries, providing first-hand facts and figures to Nigerians at home and abroad on the policies and programs of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration. Today will not be any different. I have no doubt that we hear a lot about the impressive efforts of the administration in advancing the electricity access and affordability across the country. For President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, electricity is pivotal to achieving the goal of industrializing Nigeria for the purpose of providing jobs, skills, and to enhance exports, and for the overall prosperity of our dear country. As is our tradition here, this briefing is being broadcast live, of course, as you know, across digital and traditional platforms, and you will have the opportunity to add forward your questions to the Honorable Minister. May I request to all the representatives of the media present here and those joining virtually that the goal remains the same. I urge you to report accurately without recourse to sensationalism. We owe it to Nigerians to present the news to them with every sense of responsibility and professionalism. The intention, of course, is to inform and educate Nigerians about the activities and programs of government. The media will always be powerful stakeholders in nation building and in our democratic evolution. And for us as a government, we will continue to accord you the necessary respect and support for you to carry out your jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, before I close, let me use this opportunity to reiterate to our friends and colleagues in the first estate of the RIM our commitment to modern and thriving media industry in Nigeria. I have only recently returned from a trip that took me, together with some of the heads of agencies, to the American National Association of Broadcasters NAB conference and workshop in Las Vegas, USA, under the theme, the technology, the trend, and the future. Following this trip also, I was in France recently for the Nigerian Business Forum hosted by the French government's Business France Enterprise. On the sidelines of those activities also, I met with the executives of United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, to further fine-tune the imminent takeoff of the first of its kind Media and Information Literacy Institute that Nigeria will be hosting here in Abuja. That institute will go a long way towards strengthening Nigeria's media environment and supporting journalists to carry out their functions even more effectively. Indeed, the goal is also to train some of our young men and women to identify and also know where there is fake news. I have shared this to reaffirm the commitment of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his administration towards the lasting transformation of Nigeria's media landscape. It is that unwavering commitment that is equally fueling interventions like the ministerial press briefing we are holding today, as well as the town hall meetings that we started earlier that will continue very soon, taking us to the southeast, the south-south, and the southwestern parts of this country. On this note, let me invite my brother, my colleague, and the man saddled with the responsibility of transforming Nigeria's power sector for the next 30 minutes to tell us the journey so far. At the end of it all, you will have the opportunity to ask questions, seek clarifications, and make commentaries where necessary. But I urge you, my dear colleagues, to ensure that you please keep your questions to the issues at hand. Please, let's avoid sensationalizing some of these events. Let us look at these issues and ask critical questions that will help us to develop as a nation. I thank you very much for listening, and it is my honor now to invite the Honorable Minister of Power to take the podium. This, of course, is the second time he's coming here. He was here last year, and you will hear from him where it is necessary when it comes to the question and answer session. He is here with all heads of agencies under the ministry that may, if it is so necessary, help him to answer very pertinent questions. Welcome, Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. The PowerPoint.
Yeah, so my beam is.
Oh, it's up. It will be up. Okay. like to see it. Now, let me see the outline. The outline. Okay, let me just start. Is that
Come and give me the outline.
the outline?
No,
The outline. Next one. So what's the next one? Where is the outline?
Number one.
So,
It's there.
Okay. So why did you?
Come,
They didn't print this.
The right is bringing it, but he said
Let
what
me
the
just-
printer is after.
Just want to. Okay. I think we can start. It's okay. The Honorable Minister for Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Muhammad Idris. The Special Advisor to Mr. President on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Onanuga. Other special advisors are present. Senior Special Assistants are present. The Permanent Secretary, the Federal Ministry of Power, the Permanent Secretary, the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, heads of government agencies, parastatals, and commissions under the Ministry of Power and the Ministry of Information and National Orientation. All directors from the Ministry of Power and the Ministry of Information and National Orientation. All other government senior officials are present. Gentlemen of the media, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, I say good morning to you all. And before I start this short presentation, I want to plead with everyone here for patience and attentive listening to this presentation so that it can be reported correctly. I see it as a great honor to stand before you this morning to present the Federal Ministry of Power's performance since we resumed office in September 2023, with special focus on our activities in the first quarter of 2025. As the saying goes, true progress, they say, is measured not by promises, but by results delivered, and by the lives that we improve along the way of execution or implementation of our plans. To start with, I would like to show you the format of this presentation, the outline of the presentation. I'll start with a brief overview of the Nigerian power sector. Then we'll move into talk about our strides at ensuring market liquidity and the sectoral reforms that we have undertaken since we resumed office. We'll now talk about the first segment of power sector value chain, which is the power generation and energy security. Then we'll look at the transmission infrastructure and the national grid. Of course, we all know that this is the only 100% owned segment of the power sector value chain by government. Then we move to the last mile, which is the distribution companies and our metering infrastructure in an attempt to close the access gaps that we have today. They will now move into renewable energy, rural electrification, and our energy transition plan. Then lastly, we look at our efforts at achieving adequate and appropriate human capacity development in the power sector, as well as ensuring local content development. Then we'll wrap it up with critical challenges that we have faced in moving through the transformation of the Nigeria power sector. Then I will conclude. That is a brief overview of this presentation format. I will start with an overview of the Nigerian power sector stakeholders. If we look at, please, let's move the slide, please. Yeah. If we look at the power sector ecosystems, there are basically three layers in summary. The first layer, which includes the presidency and multiple federal ministries, are responsible for policy direction and policy formulation. And we have the second layer, which has to do with government agencies, parastatals, and commissions, which are more like what I would describe as foot soldiers at ensuring implementation of government policies, policy directives across the power sector. Then the third layer is the power sector operators, which include the gas companies, the power generation companies, and the power distribution companies. So the power sector ecosystem is as shown in the slide above, that the presidency and multiple government ministries are responsible for policy direction and formulation, while government agencies, parastatals, and commissions are responsible for the policy implementation. Then we have the gas companies, like I said, the generation companies, transmission company, and distribution companies, who are the power sector implementers of government policies. Then we have the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, who is solely responsible for sector regulation. The generating companies, transmission companies, the DISCOs are all being regulated by the NAC. And I'm sure the chairman of NAC is here, Alhaji Garba Sanusi. Oh, thank you very much. Our regulator is here. Thank you so much for the support. Then, the power sector administration itself. This is narrowing it down to the Honorable Minister, who provides the general oversight for the sector and get involved in policy formulation for the sector. Of course, I'm supported by our revered Permanent Secretary, Alhaji Mahmoud Maman, and all the directors across the departments in the Ministry of Power, from Energy Resource Department to Transmission Service Department, Distribution Service Department, Renewable and Rural Access Power Department, then other support departments in Finance, HR, General Services, and so on and so forth. Then, our foot soldiers, who directly oversee the implementation of all government policies in the power sector, starting from the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, like I mentioned earlier, the Transmission Company of Nigeria that handles the transmission segment, 100% owned by government, the Rural Electrification Agency, which is responsible for renewable energy and rural power implementation, rural electrification, and also plays major role in our energy transition plan in the power sector. Then we have the Training Institute, which is the National Power Training Institute, NAPTIN. Then the NEMCO, the Nigerian Electricity Liability Management Commission, and the NEMSA, the Chief Electrical Inspector for the sector. That is the CEO of Nigeria Electricity Management Service Agency. Then we have the, I will call it the SPV, the Special Purpose Vehicle, that was created by government to oversee the implementation and execution of what we call the Presidential Power Initiatives that you all know as a Siemens project. That is the FGen Power Company Limited. The CEO is also here, while we have the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company, NBET. Then lastly, the only government-owned generating company also reports partially to the minister, even though they have a direct reporting to the office of the vice president in terms of administration and governance. But operationally, they still report to the Honorable Minister of Power. That is the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, NDPHC. So those are the people, the agencies that support the federal ministry in implementing government policies across all governments, all segments of the power sector value chain. Then we have the power sector operators, who are the real deals. They are the ones that are actually involved from power generation to power transmission to power distribution. We have a total of 33 power generating companies who are the operators. 6 companies for the hydropower generation. We're talking about Kanji, Jebas, Shiroro, Zungeru, Kashimbila, Dadinkowa, and also all sorts. Then we have 27 thermal plants. These are the gas-powered power plants. We have about 27 of them. Out of these 27, we have NDPHC as one, with about 7 or 8 plants. So since we resumed office, we are focused on delivering measurable progress that strengthens the power sector and improves electricity access across the country. So working collaboratively with our agencies, partners, and the private sector, I am proud to highlight the key milestones achieved over the past 1.5 years of being in the office. Like I said earlier, I will start with the market liquidity and sector reforms. So let me begin with our progress in market liquidity and sector reforms, which are fast reshaping our sector's landscape. This may sound like soft issues, but these are the key steps and enablers that drive growth and development of the sector across all segments. You may have generating companies, you may have transmission and distribution companies. If the sector does not have the appropriate institutions and policy reforms, it will be tough for us to achieve any progress in any of these power operating companies. In fulfillment of the statutory mandate of the Electricity Act of 2023, the federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Power, developed what we call the National Integrated Electricity Policy. This transformative framework set a clear roadmap for delivering a resilient, cost-effective, and sustainable power sector. The National Integrated Electricity Policy, which was presented to Mr. President, has been submitted for approval by the Federal Executive Council. This was also sent out to all power sector stakeholders for review, and their feedbacks were sent back to the team, and we have actually updated the policy with all their views, additions, and other feedbacks. This policy guides all power sector actors, including investors, operators, regulators, and the supervising ministry itself, to transform Nigeria's power sector through a data-driven and evidence-based approach. The last policy for the sector before we did this was just about 20 years ago. So there was virtually nothing guiding the operations of all actors in the sector when we resumed. So we believe this was the first step for us to do after engaging and consulting with all power sector stakeholders to diagnose what the issues were in the power sector and to decide what are the practical and workable solutions to achieve a transformation and a revamp of the Nigeria power sector. Outside the policy, another major milestone was the presentation of the Integrated Resource Plan, IRP, which is a strategic roadmap that prioritizes least cost electrification and optimized energy resource utilization. We have energy resources across the country. How do we achieve the least cost generation, the least cost transmission, and the least cost distribution for the affordability of Nigerians for effective power utilization? Collectively, the duo of the policy and the integrated resource plan present a unique opportunity to transform Nigeria's power sector through a data-driven and evidence-based approach. Beyond strengthening the sector, these frameworks have far-reaching economic implications, directly impacting supply reliability to small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, and large industries, reducing operational disruptions caused by power shortages, fostering economic job growth and job creation, and accelerating local and regional development. Beyond this, our commitment to energy access was further demonstrated when we signed the Nigeria Energy Compact in January in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. This initiative, which is led by the World Bank and the Africa Development Bank, aligns with our aspiration to expand energy generation and access to our people. The initiative is called Mission 300. It's an initiative of the World Bank and the AFDB. And the target of Mission 300 is to extend energy access to an additional 300 million Africans between now and year 2030, out of the 600 million currently lacking access. When they decided on this, there was a research and that concluded that there are existing 600 million Africans out of about 1.4 billion Africans who lack access to energy. And they decided to reduce this by 50% within the next 5 years, between now and year 2020. It's a joint initiative of WB and AFDB. And they are going to support this with resources. A total of $30 billion, $35 billion coming from the World Bank and $5 billion coming from the AFDB, which will even be complemented by donations from some philanthropic organizations like the Rockefeller Group in the US. So this initiative will be realized based on a 5-pillar strategy. Number one is expanding generation, strengthening utilities, that's the power distribution companies, incentivizing private investments, accelerating renewables, and boosting regional integration. We are all aware of the West African Power Pool, whereby there is a collaboration among all countries within the West Africa sub-region to ensure that there is improved energy security and energy transactions across the region. There is already an energy exchange institute in Cotonou, which was commissioned in 2024. I was personally present. And the chairman, the MD of TCN is actually chairman of West African Power Pool. The compact sets ambitious goals to enhance electricity access, increase renewable energy adoption, and improve clean cooking solutions for millions of Nigerians. That is Mission 300, and we're making good progress in this. And I'm happy to tell you that out of the 300 million Africans that the World Bank and AFDB want to give energy access to, Nigeria is in a position thus, because as it is today in Nigeria, a country with over about 240 million people, we have access for 150 million people already, while about 80 million people lack access to adequate electricity in Nigeria. The issue is not really about access, it's about the reliability of this access. And reliability is measured in terms of stability of the access and affordability of this access, which is what we are working on. So when we are presenting our compact, we told them that when you are extending energy access to these additional 300 million people, let's not focus on renewable energy alone. It will be appropriate for rural environments, rural communities. But we should also focus on strengthening the grid infrastructure so that those that already have access, the access will be made reliable. Otherwise, how do we explain a lot of Nigerian companies who have opted out of the grid and started generating captive power for themselves? It's because of non-reliability of the existing access. So we have to focus on the infrastructure, both power evacuation, transmission, and distribution infrastructure, and they have agreed with us. So Nigeria is a major focus of Mission 300. And just 2 days ago, I held a meeting with the country representative of the World Bank, the new vice president, who agreed with all our submission. Thirdly, it is evident that due to our transformative tariff reforms, the market has generated an additional 700 billion naira in revenue in 2024, reflecting a 70% increase. Thank you. For 2023, power sector market revenue was 1.05 trillion, just about 1 trillion. And that's what we've been able to generate all these years with incremental growth of 10%, 5% on an annual basis. But with the tariff review that was implemented in 2024, the revenue grew from 1 trillion 2023 to 1.7 trillion, which is 700 billion increase. And this is the result from the cost reflective tariff adjustment for band A customers. And we have just done this for 15% of Nigerian electricity consumers. Market revenue for 2024 rose from 1 trillion in 2023 to 1.7 trillion in 2024. This growth in market revenue is unprecedented, as the highest growth previously achieved in past years had been about 19%. 19% to 70%, I believe, is a commendable growth. Thank you. So what is the impact of this increase in revenue? This positively impacts the reduction of the government's subsidized tariff shortfall by 35%. If you remember, when we made the presentation last year, we envisaged that government subsidy will be about 3 trillion for year 2024, based on the old tariffs. This was reduced significantly by 35%, decreasing it from the envisaged 3 trillion subsidy to 1.94 trillion in 2024. That is a clear-cut reduction of 1 trillion, which should have been paid by government. So this demonstrates that financial viability and service delivery can coexist harmoniously. Still on market reforms, the establishment of the National Independent Service Operator, NISO, marks a major milestone. The new Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria Independent System Operator, Alhaji Abubakar, was introduced. And someone asked me, do you have any agency called NISO? I said, yes. NISO is just a week old. It was actually created and inaugurated last week on the 8th of April by the Vice President with the approval of Mr. President, even though we've been on it for the past 1 year. So I want to congratulate you for your appointment as the MD CEO of NISO. This may not be clear to a lot of laymen. The creation of NISO is in line with the requirement of the Electricity Act of 2023, which mandates the unbundling of the Transmission Company of Nigeria into the Transmission Service Provider, TSP, and the National Independent System Operator. This separation ensures clarity of purpose and independence of the system and market operators. It is important to note that this initiative has been attempted severally in the past with failures recorded, but under the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, the board of NISO was inaugurated by the Vice President on the 8th of April, which will now independently manage grid operations to enhance efficiency and reliability. Let me take a second to enlighten us a bit on this, why this is very important to us in achieving stability of the national grid. The TCN, Transmission Company of Nigeria, as we all know, which has been fraught with a lot of difficulties and poor performance in the past, until recently when all these reforms are being carried out. They perform basically two functions. Transmission service provision, which is TSP. That's the provision of transmission infrastructures for the Nigerian national grid, which is provision of high tension cables, provision of towers, provision of substations, transformers, and all sorts of that. Then we have the system and market operators who are the ones responsible for transporting energy itself from the point of generation to the point of distribution. It's like you have the case of the provider of a vehicle and the driver of the vehicle. We have matched them together in the past. There is no clear-cut distinction between the activities of the independent system operator and the transmission service provider. So if the driver is not driving well, we don't know whether it is the driver who does not know how to drive or it is the vehicle that is driving that is not good. Now we are separating the two functions. We will measure the provider of the vehicle separately and we will measure the driver separately. When the provider of the vehicle hand over a damaged vehicle to the driver, he will shout and tell me, no, TSP, I don't want this infrastructure. Maintain it, replace it. So that I will not be measured based on your damaged vehicle. But before, because they are together, they cannot criticize themselves. TCN is just one. So now we have separated it. The provider of infrastructure is separate and the driver of transmission activity is separate. I believe this marks a new beginning for our transmission activities and we are going to see better service in achieving grid stability. Thank you. In alignment with the Electricity Act in the past months, regulatory oversight has now been successfully transferred to Plateau and Niger states in the first quarter of 2025, making them 11 states now with independent regulatory oversights. Furthermore, regarding market liquidity, the diligent efforts of the Nigerian Electricity Liability Management Company have resulted in the reconciliation and reduction of federal debts owed to Abuja Disco by 47.4%, decreasing from 15.53 billion to 8.17 billion. That is as far as our sector reforms and market liquidity is concerned. You gave me 5 minutes remaining. This is not possible. This is power sector. It concerns every Nigerian. It impacts every Nigerian. Give me as much time as I require so that we'll be able to explain to people what we have done. I will not waste time, but don't restrict me to 5 minutes, please. For me to have come straight to do this presentation, if you can have the whole day, I should be able to have it. But within 30 minutes, I will finish. Now, let's go to generation and energy security. One of the major focuses of the power sector is to improve generation and improve energy security. Over the past months, we have continuously made progress in generation through some of the initiatives I will be highlighting. This is key to achieve energy security. On 2nd of March 2025, Nigeria reached a remarkable generation available capacity of 6,003 megawatts, marking the first time this level had been recorded in the country's history of the power sector. Let me thank our agencies, our operators that this was achieved during our time. We have crossed the bar of 6,000 megawatts for the first time in the history of Nigeria's power sector. That is not enough. This achievement was followed by a peak generation evacuation of 5,801.44 megawatts on 4th of March 2025, which also saw an impressive daily energy output, the highest ever, 128,370.75 mega hours per day on that very day. We've always been in 118, 119,000 megawatts on a daily basis, but we achieved 128. That is the highest energy ever consumed in a day since power sector came to being in Nigeria, and we are proud to achieve this. Thank you. Now, on summary, the average daily power generated and distributed in the past quarter of 2025 was 5,700 megawatts. Compared with what we met when we resumed office, average of 4,100 megawatts achieved in the third quarter of 2023. This indicates a growth of 1,600 megawatts, nearly 40% growth since we assumed office at the ministry. Thank you. This is very important to us. I came into office August 20, 2023. And between July, August, and September, what we achieved was 4,100 generated, evacuated, transmitted, and distributed. And it's always been like that. Even though there were spikes in the past, it would go up, it would come down. It was not sustainable. And it took the country about 40 years. In 1984, when Alhaji Rilwan Lukman was the Federal Minister of Power, we achieved 2,000 megawatts of power generation. We took this to 4,000 about 2016 to 2022. So it took the country between 35 to 40 years to achieve 2,000 incremental generation. But this administration, thanks to our Mr. President for his support, in 1.5 years, we grew this from 4,100 to a peak generation of 5,800. 1,700 in 1.5 years. What we are saying is that past administrations have their own positives. Creation of the NIPPs, privatization of the sector, a lot of things that they achieved. But if they have been adding at least 1,000 megawatts of power since 1999, we'll be talking about 26,000 megawatts plus 2,000 plus 4,000. That would be about 30,000 megawatts of power in Nigeria today. But we cannot keep dwelling in the past. It's the way forward. Now that we have created the trajectory, if we sustain this trajectory, I can assure you that before the end of this administration in 2027, the first 10 of this administration, 2027, we should be able to generate and distribute nothing less than 8,000 megawatts of power. Thank you. So, given that it took the country almost 40 years to achieve an incremental 2,000 megawatts average energy, we accomplished this in less than 2 years. Though, through targeted interventions by the new management of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, we have been able to restore additional 232.5 megawatts of previously idle capacity from our Omotosho and Benin plants. Additionally, NDPHC has carried out this construction, improvement, and installation of 14 transmission lines across the country. NDPHC is the government-owned power generating company with a installed capacity of about 4,000. But they've always been generating less than 500 megawatts, achieving less than 15% of capacity. But with the new management, we have moved up to 800 megawatts, which is about 20% of capacity. I believe this will continue to go up. So, in addition to these impressive generation initiatives, Sun Africa Energy and Skipper Electric are keen to invest in Nigeria's power sector. emphasizing renewable generation and grid expansion. What we have today on our grid are just two types of power: the hydropower and the thermal, that's the gas power. But with the abundance of sunshine that we have in Nigeria, nothing stops us from having a utility scale solar power generation. And we have two companies that have expressed interest in this. We have evaluated, and discussions is at very, very high stage. Number one is Sun Africa, who actually intends to bring in about 1,000 megawatts of solar energy to complement the efforts of NDPHC at their various locations. And this will go straight into the grid. That's having solar power on our grid. Then the second is Skipper Energy, who have also decided to construct modular solar power plants in the 19 states of the northern part of Nigeria, about 100 megawatts each, so that each state will be independent and the independence of national grid will be reduced. This will ensure that we have solar power in our national grid. So, furthermore, the process of full evacuation from Zungeru and Kashibila hydropower plant is underway. Zungeru currently has capacity of 700, but we are only evacuating 450 megawatts out of 700 because of infrastructure shortages. So we are focusing on that to ensure that the remaining 250 megawatts is evacuated, and that will be an increase in our power generation. Then Kashimbila, which is in Taraba State, also has capacity of 40 megawatts. Currently, we are evacuating about 10 megawatts. We are going to work on that. So we are in the initial phases of developing the Makodi hydro project and revitalizing the Kaduna thermal plant. Makodi hydro project is a large hydro project of about 1,500 megawatts, because we need to start planning for the future. So we can't wait until we exhaust the existing generating companies before we start introducing new ones. So we have started work on Makodi, and we have the Kaduna thermal plant, which was constructed by the Federal Ministry of Power. It is 87% completed, but was neglected for 6 years. Since 2018-2019, they have stopped work on it. So I personally inspected it and ensured that we got Mr. President approval for us to complete this project, and it has a capacity of 215 megawatts. Before the end of the year, the Kaduna power plant will be in operation, I can assure you. So, feasibility studies too, because we have a wind farm in Katsina, which is a 10 megawatt wind farm, which has also been abandoned because of some challenges that we experienced on this project. The PS was in Katsina last month, and we have agreed with the Katsina state government and some private investors that they will take it over. And that will also empower the state's markets for electricity to ensure that they are able to develop, complete this project, and enjoy the 10 megawatts of power. Thank you. So, let me leave generation. But before I leave generation, there was a World Bank study that puts our hydropower capacity in Nigeria at 14 gigawatts, which is 14,000 megawatts. As it is today, we are only exploiting less than 20%. Among Kanji, Jeba, Shiroro, Zungeru, and all other dams, we don't have up to 3,000, but we have dams all over. So we are looking and working with United Nations International Development Organization, UNIDO, on a project called Sustainable Power and Irrigation in Nigeria, Spain, for which they have set $500 million aside to ensure that all these our small hydro potentials across the strategic corridors in Nigeria are fully exploited. And we also want to thank Mr. President for introducing the Badagry-Sokoto Highway, which will provide access for us to exploit all the dams along Lagos, Oyo, Kwara, Niger, Kebbi, and Sokoto. This will give us enough access to exploit all the dams. Then lastly, we are looking at a situation whereby wind energy is further exploited. But when you talk about wind, you talk about desert wind, which we have across the north. Then we talk about coastal wind, the offshore wind across the coastal states. Thanks to Mr. President for Lagos-Calabar Highway. Because the major problem with wind energy has always been access. How do you access the coastal areas? But now, with the coastal highway from Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, Rivers, Akwa Ibom to Cross River, those 9 states do not have any excuse not to exploit the wind energy potentials of their coastal borders. So we are working on that, and we have commissioned studies to invite private investors. So lastly, we are discussing establishing frameworks for private sector participation in investment in the national grid. The MD of TCN is here. We have various offers from private investors. National grid is owned 100% by government. But I can tell you, with other ministries competing for funds, we cannot fund the national grid alone. It's an expanded national grid. If you look at the grid, I will give you the features of the grid. It's too large. And there are some dedicated lines which some private investors have expressed interest. And with NISO now, it will be much easier for us to invite the private sector investors and let them finance construction of new lines, construction of new substations, and introduction of new transformers, and they will be able to benefit from the proceeds of the wheeling charges from the DISCOs and the GENCOs. Now, let me move to transmission. Transmission expansion and grid stability. For purpose of a little education too, a lot of people think the Nigerian national grid is just a pack of unassembled gadgets that collapse on maybe a little intervention. No. It is a wide network of electrical installations across the length and breadth of Nigeria, over 1 million square meters of land mass. So the Nigerian transmission network currently comprises 92 lines of 330 kV covering 9,504 kilometers and 141 lines of 132 kV spanning 8,558 kilometers, interconnected through our 57 existing 330, 132, 33 kV and 186, 132, 33 kV substations. That is over 250 substations across Nigeria. This backbone infrastructure is supported by 91 power transformers of 330 kV voltage level with 14,978 MVA capacity and 392 transformers of 132, 33 kV providing 19,238 MVA capacity. And do we know what 1 MVA means? 1 MVA means 2 500 kVA transformers combined. That is 1 MVA. And we are talking of almost 35,000 MVA capacity. So it's a huge grid to cover to over 200 million people. And it's been there for so long, and we know that the maintenance history has been poor. Replacement history has been poor. Expansion history has been poor. So it is old. So collectively enabling our grid 8.7 gigawatt operational capacity as of today. If we grow our generation to 8,700 megawatts, the grid can still carry it. Thanks to the activities of the TCN and the FGM Power Company. 2 years ago, once it gets to 5,000, the grid collapses. But we have evacuated 5,800 successfully without the grid blinking. It was still stable. So we can transport, thank you, 8,700. To strengthen this critical network, TCN commissioned 61 new transformers, totaling 5,589 MVA in 2024. That's 61 new transformers, followed by 9 additional transformers in Q1 of 2025 across key locations in Lagos, Benin, Bauchi, Osogbo, Kano, and Kaduna. We have the list of the sites in there. And again, I once mentioned that TCN had over 100 unfinished projects. In the 2025 appropriation, we already have 25 billion naira to support TCN to complete some of these projects, and that will also improve power supply. So beyond TCN, we have the activities of the Presidential Power Initiative, which is being executed by the FGN Power Company. The pilot phase delivered infrastructure across 13 locations, adding 700 megawatts to the national grid. We experienced a number of grid disturbances towards the end of last year. But since January up to today, 4 months into the new year, we have not seen any major disturbance to the grid. And I can assure you, we do everything possible to maintain and sustain the current scenario. If there is any little disturbance, our turnaround time is being worked upon. Within 1 to 2 hours, the grid will be up. So we have FGN activities in Abuja, in Kogi State, in Delta State, Edo State, Plateau State, Lagos State, Kebbi State, Niger State, Kano State, Lagos, Oyo, and Ogun State. The activity is nationwide, and we can see the impacts. So, due to the process of the pilot phase, we have the approval of the President and the FEC, that's the Federal Executive Council, to proceed to phase 1 of the PPI project. Hence, contracts have been signed with Siemens, CIMEC, SWD, and Power China, and financing arrangements are at advanced stages to support implementation. Now, we are leaving the pilot stage of Siemens project, we are moving into the phase 1 stage, and the impact of this will soon be felt by Nigerians. So another remarkable initiative is the progress made to regionalize the national grid. The Eastern and Western super grid approvals currently in progress will revolutionize our grid, reducing failures and creating redundancy. We have all said that what Nigeria needs today is a regional or regionalization of the national grid, so that if there's a problem in one part of the country, it will not affect other parts. Having a single national grid that will be down 100%, it is not desirable. So we are taking steps to make sure that we regionalize this grid through introduction of the Eastern and Western super grid. This project is on, and we hope to have FEC approval for it as soon as we come back from Easter. Then let me not waste time and move on to distribution. I've talked about onboarding of TCN. In the distribution segment, we have made significant strides in closing the metering gap and expanding last mile electrification. 2 fundamental pillars that ensure fair billing, boost revenue recovery, and bring power to underserved communities. These initiatives are transforming our distribution landscape from estimated consumption to measured accountability, and from energy exclusion to universal access. Let me now highlight our distribution in our achievement in these distribution segments. I just need 10 more minutes, I will round up. Yeah. The launch of the Presidential Metering Initiative, which is backed by a 700 billion naira FAC allocation. The fund is ready to acquire meters under the Presidential Metering Initiative. This is a coalition between the federal and the state government. And the chairman of that PMI today is the governor of Kwara State, Alhaji Abdurrahman. I serve on the board, while the SA Energy to Mr. President is the secretariat for this initiative. Today, we have a new SPV, which has been set up with the board, fully constituted to lead implementation. Before the end of December, we target 1.1 million meters by the end of 2025. The procurement process has started, I can assure you, and we have a plan for 2 million meters annually for the next 5 years, and the procurement process has started. If we add 2 million meters annually for the next, it's 10 million meters, plus 1.1 for this year, that's 11.1 million meters. This will cut off our meter gap, which currently starts at about 6 to 7 million. And in addition to that, through the World Bank funded Distribution Sector Recovery Program, DSREP, over 3.2 million meters will be procured and installed alongside meter data management solutions for DISCO optimization. Today, we have completed the procurement process of this rep. 75,000 meters have already arrived in April, and we are expecting additional 200,000 meters in the month of May. Before the end of this year, 1.3 million meters will come from the World Bank funded DISREP program. Lastly, the distribution companies are currently undergoing restructuring aimed at enhancing service delivery and operational efficiency. Furthermore, new acquisitions and management modifications are being implemented among the DISCOs, while the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission is reinforcing the performance measurement matrix for the DISCOs to ensure they perform up to expectation. So, those with fears about meter gap, you should be rest assured this will be in a thing of history very soon. We are taking practical steps to ensure that meters are acquired en masse and we close the gap. So, now, the PPI projects also cover infrastructure improvements in the distribution segments. We have awarded these contracts. They are not restricting it to transmission alone, but they will work on building new lines, distribution lines, injection substations, and supply of distribution transformers. And 2025 appropriation too has provision for transformer intervention by federal government for those communities without transformer. So it remains 5 minutes, don't worry. So, let's take the last one, which is renewable energy, rural electrification, and energy transition. Nigeria continues to lead on renewable initiatives to the vanguard of Nigeria's energy transition, powering sustainable development while bridging the energy access gap. This quarter, we have accelerated our transition to clean energy solutions while bringing electricity to underserved communities through innovative off-grid systems. These efforts align with our commitment to climate action, energy security, and inclusive growth, ensuring no Nigerian is left behind in our journey towards a sustainable energy future. Now, under renewable energy, the federal government launched the Energizing Education Program, which was designed to provide a reliable power supply to 37 federal universities and 7 affiliated teaching hospitals across Nigeria. EEP phases 1 and 2, which is implemented in collaboration with the World Bank, have been successfully completed. I can tell you that a number of our universities now, as listed there, are having renewable energy. I'm aware of University of Maiduguri and the Teaching Hospital with 12 megawatts. I visited Abuja University with 3 megawatts. There is Calabar with another 4 megawatts. University of Agriculture in Abeokuta with about 5 megawatts. NTA in Kaduna with about 2 megawatts. So those social institutions, federal universities and teaching hospitals must be covered from the burden of energy costs. So government has provided renewable energy for them to dilute their energy costs. And we are not stopping. We are going to 37 universities and 7 teaching hospitals. So, and another remarkable initiative is the distributed access through renewable energy scale-up, DARES, which is a $750 million initiative funded by the World Bank. I will leave. So let me go to the human capital and local content development, which is the last page. We have commissioned the JICA demonstration substation for hands-on training, while 387 power sector professionals have enhanced their skills through our capacity building programs. Don't let me waste time on this anyway, because we have done a lot. We have done a lot to ensure that we develop local capacity in Nigeria. A lot of our power sector equipment and installations are imported. This is putting pressure on our foreign exchange. So we must have companies producing solar panels. We must have companies producing batteries in Nigeria. So these are the things that we're actually using our policies to address. Let me round up because of time, so that we can have time for question and answers. There are, before you push me away, sincerely, if I have a whole day, I'll give you all that we have done. We've done so much. But we have 4 challenges, and I will not be fair to the agencies and operators sitting here without mentioning these 4 challenges. I will just summarize them. We all know. Number 1 is the debt being owed the power generating companies. Today, it stands at 4 trillion naira. Yes. For 2024 alone, it was 1.94 trillion. If not for the Band A tariff increase, we would have been talking about 3 trillion. From 2015 to 2023, it was 2 trillion. 2 trillion plus another 1.94 in 2024, that's 3.94 trillion. That's 4 trillion debt. If you have not paid for good last supplied, how do you expect me to supply new goods? So we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder if we do not start paying down on the debt we owe the Genco. And this debt is unfunded subsidy. MBET is here. They did the reconciliation. So we need to do everything possible to ensure that we pay down on so that the nation is not put into darkness, number 1. Number 2, I'll keep saying it, vandalism. 2 days ago, we had NCP, National Council on Privatization. And the VP mentioned the issue of, in 2003, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and Egypt, we are on 3,000 megawatts. Today, Bangladesh is on 29,000. Egypt is on 42,000. Nigeria is on just 6,000. What happened? I said it's possible. If previous government had been adding 1,000 since 2003, we'll be talking about additional 22,000 today, plus the 3,000, it will be 25,000. But we won't dwell in the past. We have started the trajectory. Let's sustain it. But in those areas, in those countries, Bangladesh and Egypt, do they vandalize their power assets? Do they? No. So this is a menace that we must all fight together, individually and collectively, to stop people from frustrating the transformational efforts of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to transform our power sector. So, then power theft and unpaid bills. Electricity consumers, they should not bypass meters again. They are frustrating distribution companies. And a lot of people have bills that they don't pay. If all this exists, you cannot be like Bangladesh, you cannot be like Egypt. You dare not pay your bills in China or UK or the US. It's a criminal offense. So our people must know that. Then the issue of investments. Our power operators, power sector operators are not investing. We made that mistake in 2013 when we did the privatization. All the insurance companies, they have not injected enough into the sector. They are only milking these companies. So we must do a lot of investment. Government cannot do it alone. So we need a lot of investment. These are the challenges, but we are working around these challenges. The little achievements in the past 18 months was like squeezing water out of the rock. But these challenges are daunting. And we need your support. We need the support of the media too, to help us educate the public that this government is bent on ensuring that the power sector support the development of all other critical sectors in the country. What can you achieve in agriculture, in health, in education, in defense, in everywhere, without a functional power sector? Is the bedrock for economic growth and national development. Thank you very much.
Please come and make the applause a bit louder for the Honorable Minister of Power. I think you can have your seat. Thank you very much. I think I had the most difficult job in the room to time the Honorable Minister of Power. And I'm only hoping that when I get home today, I will have power supply for tonight. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for the want of time, we'll move straight to the question and answer session. The Honorable Minister of Information has gladly permitted that we take just 4 questions. But before we go there, permit me to recognize the presence of the Chairman, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission Engineer Sanusi Garba. Please a round of applause for him. Also, the presence of the Senior Special Assistant to the President, Mr. Tunde Rawan. Please, a round of applause for him. As well as the Senior Special Assistant to the President, Mr. Olusegun Dada. Please, a round of applause for him. So we'll move straight to the question and answer. We know the drill. Your name, the media organization you represent, and straight to the question. 1, 2, 3, and the lady behind, 4. Please, the gentleman. SN.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Minister of Power. It's not easy walking the road.
Please, your name.
Situation. My name is Akunle Kola Olubeyo. I'm President Nigeria Consumer Protection Network. I recall that in 2013, in this same hall, under Professor Chinedu Nebo, we celebrated attainment of a spike of 5,600 megawatts, 2013. Myself, Nebo, Ambassador Gali were here with the media, and that should be put on record. The first question goes to FG Power, Cement Power Project. I believe that the Cement Power Project is not a free gift. They set a target for 25,000 megawatts under the last administration. What exactly is the problem? Because Nigeria have financial commitment to this. I will raise my question in 2 minutes. Another question is that is to the MDTCN. I'm aware, verified debt of local indigenous contractor to TCN is 70 billion naira. Unverified debt commitment to local contractor, everything put together is about 300 billion naira. Now, NEC have not been paying TCN wheeling charges. Under Dr. Eddie Ej and UG Usman. UG Usman left about 400 billion naira in TCN coffer. So without payment of wheeling charges is the service provided by the transporter of the grid. We are talking about grid constraint. About some weeks ago, I chatted with the minister. His constituency in Oyo, Oshogbo, Ikeja West, the transmission line that is presently under repairs lost 165 megawatts because the line was constructed 60 years ago. The cylinder got shattered. So there are a lot of issues of non-investment in the sector. Lastly, the DISCOs, talking about liquidity challenges, the DISCOs are expected to pledge letter of credit to the market, 90 days letter of credit. They've withdrawn that letter of credit. Generation go to the bank and borrow money to buy gas. Transmission provide service is not being paid for. The distribution will take energy on credit and they are not paying, and the end users are paying. What is the Honorable Minister doing about it? And lastly, you talk about the metering. Metering, no, it's very, we are representing all of you. We talk about the metering gap. The minister spoke glowingly about some meters have arrived. Arrived from where? Because you have, I'm just being honest, you have indigenous meter manufacturing company. What effort is minister making to strike a balance? You can see what Donald Trump is doing. Globalization, free trade is being reviewed. So we import meters from Asia and China. The Kaduna Disco had experience, so meters was imported and installed. When there was fault, they could not do the maintenance and servicing. So what is the Honorable Minister doing? A lot of Nigerians have committed so much in establishing meter assembly or manufacturing company. What's the Honorable Minister doing to make sure that local indigenous companies are carried along so that we don't just import all our meters, export jobs to Asia and import poverty? Thank you, Honorable Minister. You are doing well.
Thank you. Please, the second person over there. Please, let's keep the questions short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Minister of Power. My name is Uket Obonga, Executive Secretary, Power and Energy Consumers Advocates of Nigeria. You said in your presentation, sir, that because of the April 2024 tariff increase for Band A customers, that the sector has witnessed 70% increment in revenue generation, totaling 700 billion. And the reasons the Honorable Minister gave, and you canvassed vigorously last year, was that 15% of Band A customers will generate this money that will scale down the subsidy. Now, I take you back to 2022, when the Honorable Minister of Finance, Ahmed Zainab, declared before the National Assembly that there was no subsidy in electricity, and there was no budgetary allocation for 2023. So when we begin to talk and bandy around that the federal government has spent so much on subsidy, we begin to wonder from where. Please, can you tell us, sir, how much the federal government has spent on subsidy? Secondly, we talked about service-based tariff, which some of us, I'm sorry, we still maintain that it is a scam. Because, one, the NEC last year assembled us, stakeholders, and told us that there were about 1,400 feeders under Band A. But only 400 were retained and about 1,000 downgraded. And this is after many Nigerians have paid humongous amount of money on that ban, and they were not supplied electricity. What has happened to these billions, hundreds of billions of naira that was paid by Nigerians? And if I remember, Section 13 of MITO 2024 clearly states, and I paraphrase, that where the utility company, the DISCO, fails to deliver on committed service level, upon measurement and confirmation by the Commission, that the customers in that cluster shall be downgraded or migrated to the service level delivered. How many Nigerians have been so downgraded and compensated?
Thank you, sir.
Finally, we talked of 15% of electricity consumers in Band A. I cite example with where we are, the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. In 2024, last year, there were about 108 feeders, 108 feeders. But today, Abuja has about 300 to 400 feeders on Band A. Do we still retain the 15% customers on Band A? Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Sonny Daniel. I work with Vanguard newspapers. Minister, I don't want to ask you a question, but let me draw your attention to some issues you need to look at. And that is with a view to ensuring that Nigerians that you serve, they will be happy with you as a person, and they will continue to support and give their understanding and goodwill to the government that brought you to power. Minister, it's very easy to come here and read these statistics. You can put statistics together and justify. But let me say that as a Nigerian, I'm sure you drive on the highways in the night. I always drive through AYA towards Cuba every day. Have you noticed that there is not constant power supply to power the street lights on that route? And that increases the potential for security problem for the country. So, instead of asking you a question, please look into the possibility of making the distribution company that is supplying Abuja to ensure that the least expectation of Nigerians that they should exempt public power supply from tariff. If not for anything, they should be conscious and concerned about national security. If they had done that, the problem we had in Lagos, Nigeria cannot say that because we are trying to pander to the interests of some capitalists, Gencos, Discos, and then national security will be jeopardized. And let me tell you, Minister, Nigerians are not too happy with you. Because they say the person who dances doesn't see the back. They believe that you have favored the companies providing electricity services. And they believe that if the president did not stop you some time ago, you would have increased tariff again. Are we going to continuously increase tariff when Nigerians are not seeing the light? Let us be fair to ourselves. I'm not going to ask you questions.
Thank you.
Think about these things.
Thank you very much. The lady at the back. The lady at the back. Thank you. Thank you very much, Decoro. Please.
Thank you, my honorable ministers. My name is Gloria Akudoro, and I report for New National Star newspaper. My question is to the honorable minister of power, and I'm drawing it from the angle of the over 4 trillion naira being owed to generation companies. And then while you were talking, honorable minister, you made mention of ongoing process to defray this figure. I want to understand, do you have a time limit? Like, is there a time frame to this effect? What I'm being concerned is that just recently, the generation companies issued some threats on shutting down operations. So I want to know if there are time frame to averting this the generation company from shutting down their operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, that will be the last of all the questions. You may wish to respond. The mic is there.
Thank you very much for the questions. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, that it's my sole responsibility to make the presentation on behalf of my team, whose members are all seated here. But when it comes to questions and answer, I will attempt those I can respond to, while we have experts and specialists in each of these areas that you have raised. So where I cannot give satisfactory response, I believe the chairman is here and others to support me. So I think I will start from bottom up. I will start from Mr. Kule Olubiyo. I will start from the lady from Nigerian newspaper who talked about the outstanding debt owed to power generating companies. Let me first explain that these debts are unpaid subsidies of the federal government, which is due to the power generating companies. Almost half of it was inherited, while about half of it came from 2024 operations. That's 4 trillion. And I agree with you, there was a publication in the paper where the companies threatened to shut down their plants. I pray not. There are plans underway to make these payments. While I would not say it will be paid 100%, we will be paying it down gradually. And the mode of payment are in 2 ways. We have some budgetary provisions which will facilitate cash payments, while we are also discussing with the generating companies to give them some guaranteed debt instruments, like a promissory notes, which will give to them to pay down or defray some of these debts. These promissory notes will be liquid enough for it to be taken to the banks for discounting if they need immediate cash injection. So it's a combination of cash payment and promissory notes. And I can tell you that between now and the end of the year, we're going to pay close to 2 trillion out of this 4 trillion. Thank you on that. Yes. But I've had discussion with the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister for the Economy, who has promised that they are working on the promissory notes. And once we have budget releases, cash payments will also be made. The man from Vanguard, your first question was actually spot on. But beyond supplying electricity to the doorsteps of households, offices, businesses, and industries, we also have the responsibility to ensure that electricity supply guarantees safety and security of our highway. I want to refer you to the 2025 appropriation, and you see a line there which has to do with lighting up our highways for safety and security. That's about 25 billion naira provision to actually light up some major highways this year, and I believe this will continue in subsequent appropriation. We have noted it, and will ensure we start the process as soon as we start getting budget release. Yes, that they are not happy with me because there's an insinuation that my policies or our policies are supporting the distribution companies in terms of tariff increase. Let me say something. Before now, Nigerians have always been paying about 20% of energy costs, and government has always been subsidizing. Let me take you back to the days of, I won't even go to National Electric, NEC. I will start from NEPA, the one that we grew up to know, Nigerian Electricity Power Authority, and the PHCN, Power Holding Company of Nigeria. Let me tell you, all these were government companies, and they were run by governments using government funds, not by tariffs paid on electricity. So electricity was almost 90% subsidized in those periods because the revenues were nothing. They were getting government subventions. So when we started privatization, and there were now 11 successor companies from distribution, we have not made any significant review to the tariffs. And we found out that this is one of the restrictive factors hampering the growth of this sector. It's not just about having installed capacity in generation. Are they actually generating power? We have about 14.4 gigawatts of installed capacity. We're just generating 6,000 now, 6 gigawatts. We met 4 gigawatts. Not because they cannot generate, but because there is no demand from the users. And if they keep producing and selling at those costs, they'll be making losses. And we said government cannot, after privatization, continue to keep funding subsidy, which keeps growing on an annual basis. As our consumption grows, government subsidy keeps growing. So we need to nip it in the bud. We are not saying stop subsidy completely, but subsidy in the past has always been favoring the higher echelon in our society because of the huge consumption. We want to devise a subsidy strategy that will favor the poor so that it will be graduated. If you consume energy to a particular threshold, you enjoy subsidy. Once it's going above a particular threshold, the tariff will go up so that the poor will not be impacted negatively because of subsidy. So we are not unnecessarily favoring the distribution companies, but as businessmen, we believe that average energy cost today per kilowatt of power is about 170 naira per kilowatt. But 85% of customers are still paying 60 naira. So it is the 110, 120 on top that government has been subsidizing. It is only on 15% that is paying 209 that they are making a profit of about, say, 19 or 29 naira. You understand? So we are saying that we still have to look at this tariff. Fine, there could be issues about not meeting service covenant in some area. NAC is fully on top of that. And if they discover that any distribution company is collecting tariff on band A and they are not supplying up to 20 hours, there are penalties. We are all here when they find Abuja electricity 200 million naira penalty. And of late now, there's about once chairman, we find about 2 other discos. 600 million, 8 of them that they just find. If there are areas where they have not been delivering on covenants, it's just that they have not been discovered. The moment they are detected, they will be fined. Where you have feeders downgraded from band A, they are not expected to charge band A tariff. They must go down to band B tariff. We can never be on the side of the companies. We are on the side of Nigerians. You must ensure that they not only enjoy reliable electricity, they enjoy affordable electricity. But all said and done, we still need to keep looking at the appropriateness of tariffs. I'm telling you, it affects me too. It's not as if I just want to increase tariff, but we need to look at, we must protect the poor. But energy is expensive all over the world. We all know. After food, security is energy security that most countries of the world are battling with. And we still enjoy the lowest tariff in Nigeria today, I must tell you. So if you are talking about reviewing tariff, it's not that we want to increase tariff, but we want to align the tariff. For example, let me round up on that. Band Bs, a lot of them enjoy 18 hours of light. 17, 16, some enjoy 20. But they are paying 65 naira. Band As are paying 209. Look at that gap. So everybody is calling that we should align the tariff, not an upward increase. But let's align it with the level of service being enjoyed. And this government will not spare any company that has the sole objective of extorting or exploiting innocent Nigerians. We are on the side of the people and will keep being on the side of the people. That is what I can tell you. Thank you on that. So, the man from Consumer Protection, subsidy by governments and feeders on band A and increase in Abuja band A feeders. I won't want to spend too much time trying to explain why government is paying subsidy. It is so clear. It is simple. We know the cost of energy. The invoices sent to the discos by the generating companies based on the PPA signed with these generating companies. The lowest we all know is hydro, and it's not less than 150, 160 naira per kilowatt hour. But how much do people pay? Over 80% of people are still paying 60 naira. So there is a gap. Who is paying for the gap? That is the subsidy. That is the subsidy. So the subsidy is not that we just make it up. We didn't make it up. The subsidy is there. The energy cost is much higher than the tariff that people are paying, except Band A people. So and government is responsible for this subsidy, but government has not been paying this subsidy regularly, which is what led to the build-up in the debt being owed the generating companies. So we are talking to ourselves to ensure that we pay this subsidy, and for it not to constitute too much burden on government, because a lot of other ministries are begging for resources. I've said it here. Works, housing, education, defense, everybody, agriculture, they need money. And we all know that price of oil is going down. Production is not improving. So we can see that government resources too, we are not so optimistic about the growth in government resources. So government must be able to reduce this subsidy. So on Band A customers, those feeders that they downgraded, if you know any community or any location where the feeders are downgraded and they still charge children, please do not hesitate to report it to us, and we will take action. And if you see anywhere where the feeders have been upgraded to Band A and the supply is not up to 20 hours, please do not hesitate to report to us. NAC is there to take the appropriate action. Thank you on that. Then lastly, Mr. Kule Olubiyo, I know we've been having regular discussions, and even 2 days ago, you were in my office, we had some discussions on this. The Siemens project, yes, it was conceived to achieve 25,000 megawatts, but over what period? It is up to 2027, 2030 or so. And it was meant to start in 2018, 2019. Did it start? No, it did not. So that's why we have the variation that we have today. So we are not supposed to even be on the pilot stage now. It's supposed to have ended by 2020. But COVID was there in 2020. The death of the champion of Siemens then, the then late Alhaji Kyari, the transition, democratic transition to new government, everything frustrated the take-off that project. That is where we are at this stage. Then lastly, is the issue of funding. You cannot do anything without money. You may have laudable plans, but if it's not supported by adequate funding, those plans will be frustrated. You understand? As of today, we are still talking about the financing arrangement, even for the phase 1. We have not concluded. The only one we concluded was the pilot phase, which was just about 56 or 60 million euro. So you can see that it's not as easy. Then on the TCN verified debt and the unverified, TCN is owing a lot of contractors. I must tell you that. But government is owing TCN too. If government is owing private generating companies, how much more a company owned by government itself? And how much pressure can TCN put on government? I've been engaging with the chairman of NAC to ensure that as we are paying and the SC Energy to Mr. President, as we are intending to pay the GENCOs, let's also not neglect payment due to TCN so that they can discharge on their obligations. I take that point. Then the last point I will answer here is the metering gap. The guarantees of the discos, I think NEC is handling that. The guarantees they're supposed to have, a lot of them are lagging behind in this. We have taken it up and we'll make sure we enforce it. The last one is the metering gap, the interest of the local meter manufacturers. It is being taken care of. I must tell you this. The owners of all these, our fellow brothers, local investors, we cannot allow their investment to go into extinction. So we must patronize them. For this rep, the World Bank funded distribution recovery program, there is a portion allocated for local manufacturers, and they have even started the local competitive bidding, the LCB. And for presidential metering initiatives, 30% is put aside for local manufacturers. So you can be rest assured, you are not the only one that like local patronages. I do like them too. You know, because I have local businesses too. So I can tell you that we have their interest in mind. But the rate at which we want to move in meter acquisition and procurement, they don't have the capacity. They don't. What we have, 90% of them are assemblages. They assemble completely knocked down parts, CKD, or semi knocked down parts, SKDs. They are not full manufacturers. Local content ranges from 10% to 40% their own. So we rely more on importation plus local supply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Honorable Minister. I think that since the Ministerial Presidency started, no one has had this enough time to talk about his sector than your own. But I think it has been very enlightening, very engaging. Nigerians are better informed now. Critical questions have been asked, and the Honorable Minister has asked them. This is part of what we have set out to do, to continue to create this platform so that you continue to engage these ministers, find out more about government programs and activities, so that at least you'll be better informed. That is the goal of this ministerial press briefing, and we'll continue to do that. Like I said earlier, the goal is that by the midpoint of this administration, that is by May 29, every minister will have come to answer questions from you, Nigerians, so that you'll be better informed, because they are there because of you. Thank you very much, and for you, ladies and gentlemen, our colleagues in the media, for your engagement, continuous engagement. We appreciate that you are a pillar in this journey, and we cannot do without you, and we thank you that each time we call you, you are always here to do all those carrying these programs live. We thank you. It's been watched all over the world. I've been receiving comments from around the globe about this program as we are going on. So this shows that Nigerians are better engaged, and will continue to do that so that you will be better informed. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and all of you. Thank you.
Well said, Honorable Minister. With that, we've come to the conclusion of this press conference. Can we please rise as we take the first stanza of our national anthem? Thank you very much.